Welcome back, everyone, to another explainer. Today, we're taking a step back to look at something you might literally use every single day, but we're going to look at it through an entirely new lens. We are taking an architectural perspective on Power Automate. Now, if you've been building workflows for a while, you already know the basics, right? But today is all about elevating those skills so you can construct truly resilient, enterprise-grade automations.
So let me start by asking you a question. Why do most Power Automate flows fail?
Really think about it.
Most people know how to log in, pick a trigger, and create a basic flow. The failure usually isn't because the platform itself broke. No. The failure happens because while builders understand the initial spark of the flow, they often lack the foundational building blocks required to make that flow truly scalable, maintainable, and intelligent when those weird edge cases inevitably pop up.
And that brings us to a really powerful realization, which is perfectly captured right here. Most Power Automate problems are not tool problems. They are design problems. The secret to incredibly powerful automation lies not in the triggers. I mean, those are easy, but in mastering the design and architecture of the actions themselves. Actions are where the actual work gets done, and poor action design is exactly what creates messy, fragile automations.
To make sense of the overwhelming universe of software actions, we've cleanly organized our master blueprint into 4 logical buckets. 1. Core logic actions. 2. Data and integrations. 3. The Power Automate formula. And 4. Pro tips for success.
And this brilliantly illustrates our comprehensive map. This one-page guide outlines the 12 essential building blocks every developer must know. We'll be using this map to construct robust, intelligent automations. From variables to HTTP requests, mastering these specific blocks is going to completely change how you architect your processes. Let's start with Section 1, Core Logic Actions. Think of these as the fundamental plumbing and wiring that give your workflows internal intelligence and state.
Okay, let's dive into this. Variables are essentially your flow's short-term memory. They allow you to store and manage values while the flow is executing. Imagine a SharePoint approval workflow. You might initialize a variable called var manager email, store the manager's email address in it right at the beginning, and simply reuse that variable multiple times later on. It's really the absolute best way to manage data and state dynamically throughout your run, rather than just moving in a rigid straight line.
Next up, we have conditions. This is how you introduce real business rules into your automation. Without conditions, as we said, your flow is rigid. With them, it's smart. You can set up branching logic. For example, if the days remaining on a contract are less than 30, send a reminder to the team. If not, do nothing. This is absolutely essential for things like compliance checks, HR workflows, and complex approval statuses.
Then, we have the apply to each action, which allows you to loop through multiple records automatically, like arrays or collections of SharePoint items. But a quick warning here for the focused developer. While looping is incredibly powerful, too many apply to each loops can severely bog down your flow's performance, so they really should be used deliberately and only when you truly need to process repeating records one by one.
Now, what's really interesting here is how underrated the compose action is. It's simple, but man, is it powerful. Compose lets you create, store, and test complex expressions without altering your original data at all. It is fantastic for safely testing date calculations or string formatting. Seriously, before you write a value to a live SharePoint column, test it in a compose action first. It will literally save you hours of debugging.
Rounding out our core logic are scope and delay. In enterprise environments, scope is strictly non-negotiable. It allows you to organize logic into clean sections, like try, catch, and finally blocks, giving you robust error handling rather than one long, messy flow. Delay, on the other hand, pauses activity intelligently. If you need a business process to wait, say, 3 days for an approval before sending a follow-up reminder, delay is definitely your go-to action.
With our internal wiring sorted out, let's move to Section 2, Data and Integrations. This is exactly where we connect our core logic to the outside world. In this bucket, we have a few heavy hitters. Outlook actions beautifully handle your communication and scheduling. File actions allow you to create, move, and rename documents seamlessly across OneDrive and SharePoint. But the real game changer here is data operations. Actions like filter array and parse JSON are what elevate a beginner's flow into a fast, professional automation by cleanly shaping and transforming data before you ever even use it.
We also really need to talk about data sources. Power Automate has actions for Excel, which are fine for small, simple reporting spreadsheets. But look at this comparison. If you are building truly scalable enterprise workflows, you have to transition away from Excel and utilize robust backends like SharePoint,
Dataverse, or SQL. Actually, let's be clear. Excel just isn't built to be an enterprise backend database.
For many of us, SharePoint is the absolute heart of Power Automate. But remember, when using actions like get items, always use filters. Never pull thousands of records when you only need 2. And then we have HTTP Actions. This is where Power Automate becomes a true integration platform, allowing you to connect to external systems like ServiceNow, Jira, or SAP. Just be prepared. HTTP requires a solid understanding of APIs, authentication, and endpoint structures.
Now for Section 3, the Power Automate formula. Let's see how this all builds into the master blueprint and shifts our mindset toward designing actual business outcomes. So the crucial point is this formula. Great developers don't just build flows randomly. They follow a consistent, linear progression. You start with a trigger, then actions perform the baseline work. Conditions apply your business logic. Loops process your multiple records. Notifications keep the human beings informed, and all of this culminates in a clear outcome. You are following a structured formula to deliver understandable, scalable business value.
To wrap up our architectural review, I want to leave you with Section 4, Pro Tips for Success. Consider these the essential building codes to keep your automated house from collapsing.
Here are your 5 rules for flow architecture. First, start simple. Automate one single task at a time. Second, build and test every step before you scale. Third, use variables to keep your data dynamic and reusable. Fourth, handle your errors natively by using scope and configure run-after settings. And finally, document everything. Use clear naming conventions. Bad naming and poor structure are the true culprits behind messy, unsupportable automations.
So as we conclude this explainer, I want to leave you with a challenge. Look at your own projects. Which Power Automate action are you going to master next? Will you finally implement Scope for error handling? Will you leverage Compose for better debugging? Or maybe you're ready to tackle HTTP integrations. Take these building blocks, apply them to your next big project, and watch your automations transform. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.